that just looks like such a really great dirty dungeon floor, like almost better than a lot of other things that I've seen. I'm going to be definitely trying that technique out here soon. Here soon. Achieving dirty dungeon floors on a dungeon tile is something that I personally have not found an effective and simple and quick way to do. So I just end up making all of my dungeon tiles look like stone. Well, this week I got an idea from someone else that I think is going to solve that problem. Let's jump into it. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Garmin. This is the Storycraft Society, and last week I was looking over the Foam Modeling Workshop Facebook page. It's one of my favorite pastimes to just sit and look at all of the awesome creations that other people have come up with to get me excited and jazzed up about crafting. If you are not a member of that Facebook page and you're like slightly interested in any of this stuff, I highly recommend that you check it out. You can also check out my video. I'll link that down below. But while I was doing that video, I came across a post by Matthias Stühle, and what they did was they used a mixture of sawdust, acrylic, craft paint, and glue to basically make their dungeon floor look dirty. I absolutely love this idea, and I'm not 100% sure how they fired theirs off, but it did get me thinking, and now I'm gonna run with this idea, and we're gonna see this week what I can come up with. I've made two test pieces, one that is more like traditional dungeon tile floor, the other one which is glued down blocks. I'm less hopeful for this one. I'm certainly more hopeful for the traditional dungeon carved blocks, but I think that there's no time better than the present to dive into how I'm going to be tackling this project. So the very first thing that I'm going to need is obviously sawdust, and I'm also going to need a bowl because what we're going to do next is pull out a sifter, and we're going to use this to sift this down so that it is going to be as fine as possible. Like if you look, there's like a lot of big stuff in here, and that's not what we want. We want fine, gritty dungeon dirt. So I'm gonna knock that out, and then when we have that done, then we can move on to the next step. And now we went from this, which is much more chunky and big pieces, to a nice, clean, fine amount here. I don't think that this is gonna be anywhere close to enough, so I'm gonna knock out a little bit more, and then I'll check back in with you when I do. And now with part one of this process finished, I have a whole bunch of superfine sifted sawdust, and it's time to move on to part two. There's actually not a lot of steps to this process, I don't think. The next one is going to be watered down PVA glue. Now, the reason that it's watered down is important because what I want is for it not to sit up on the high surfaces of my dungeon tile here. I don't want it sitting up here. I want it to fall down in the recesses so that the recesses all look dirty. So the next step is to take this watered down glue and go over all of the lines here, trying to be as neat as I possibly can. And then we're gonna take and scatter our sawdust over top of the piece and let it dry. So working on both pieces was basically the same experience. You start with the glue, you run it into the cracks. I actually used a toothpick some of the time to help kind of guide it into where I wanted it to go. Dump your sawdust over the top, tap that off, and then let it dry. One thing that I did do is I went back over top of the sawdust with another run of PVA glue and water, just so that it soaked down in, and I made sure to get it nice and saturated. That way it dried really, really solid, but that was basically it. Then I just let it sit to dry for a while. And the one that I did with the blocks, I was nervous about. I thought wasn't going to turn out. And if I'm being honest, I think I might like it more than I like what the carved block looks like. There's just a lot more variation with the block of nooks and crannies that it can kind of set in and pile in. So that's it. This is another one of those trial projects where I saw an idea that somebody else had and I tried to recreate it as best as I could with the skills that I have. I encourage everybody to try this every once in a while. These aren't pieces that are going to make it into my collection, although I love the look of them, and honestly, I think that they could end up being something that I would make a whole entire dungeon set out of this particular look. The paint scheme was easy. For the most part, putting them together was easy, and definitely doing all of the dungeon dirt was easy, so what more can you ask for? Hopefully you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, you can support the channel by doing all of the YouTube stuff like subscribing, leaving a comment, liking this video. The number one way that you can help a small YouTube channel out is to share their videos with a friend that you think would enjoy it. And if you enjoyed this video and have a friend that you think would enjoy it, that's just a little bit of help that goes such a massively long way. But that's going to be it. Thanks so much to Matthias Stule for the idea. What a great, great look this was. It was a fun little test, and I can't wait to see where it goes from here. So until next week, I'll be seeing you.